Hello, Willingdon Young Adults. It is great to be with you again, and we are here in our very last segment of our relationship series. We talked about marriage last week with Dave and Rusha Clausen, and we're going to be talking about marriage again this week with my dear friends Mark and Leisal Westerink. So we had the wisdom and experience of a couple married for 35 years, and now we're going to talk to a younger couple who is a little bit earlier on in their journey of marriage, and just to share a bit about their experience and their wisdom, and also what they've learned about the process along the way. And so, Mark and Leisal, it is so great to have you guys with us. Thanks for coming out today.
Thank you. We're excited.
Yeah, sweet.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, our pleasure. So why don't we just start off by you guys sharing your story, because we love hearing how people met and how a relationship even began. So where did your journey begin?
You go first.
Yeah, we met at university. We went to McMaster University. I was studying engineering. Leisal was studying social science. But we met at the climbing gym at our school.
Nice.
And yeah, I was in my second year. Leisal came in climbing maybe a little bit after Frost Week in first year, and then.
In Frost Week, is that like initiation week?
Yes,
or?
yes, orientation week. So
okay.
shortly after her first year, then we met, and we just slowly kind of became friends. But we were in the same community for quite a while, and then ended up climbing together, doing some trips together. And then...
So basically you saw her climbing and you're like, oh dang. is that
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so a passion that we both had, and we did a lot of time together, and you really develop trust when somebody literally has your life on the line.
Seriously.
And then as we got to know each other, I remember Leisal invited me over to her family's place one time, and I realized that she was from a Christian home, which I was also, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is maybe a potential. And then so kind of
Nice.
Started to initiate that relationship a little bit more. And then, and I think actually a little bit before that, I was the president of the climbing club at the university, and then Leisal ended up being the vice president. And then that's
when we got to know each other a lot.
And then became first lady of the...
Yeah. So started dating shortly after that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate rendering of the story, Leisal, or do you have a different take on it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember seeing him at the wall. That was what the little climbing gym was called. And yeah, earlier on, I always thought he was, cute, but we didn't really start.
I don't blame you. Mark is a cutie.
I didn't really start taking it seriously until I got to know him more, and also found out about his Christian upbringing and some of his values that he had for his life and his love for Jesus. So that I found the most attractive.
Yeah, awesome. So for both of you, it sounds like, there was this attraction, there was this interest, but nothing too serious, not like you're, trying to take them out on dates or anything. You're just in this similar community, kind of shared experiences. And it wasn't until you knew a bit more about who they were, kind of their beliefs, their values, and that's when things kind of were like, oh, okay, like we could actually take this somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And also I matured a little bit more too. I mean, my first year university is, I grew a lot as well.
Right. Oh yeah.
Third year, yeah.
Because you were what, 18, 19?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started dating more when we were 21, 22. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Sweet. So when did you know that each other was the one that you wanted?
It didn't take me very long. We had been dating 3 months, and then I was going out to Green Bay Bible Camp that summer.
Was that the summer we met?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on my way out there, I actually drove. I ended up stopping in Winnipeg, and Leisal was visiting some family that she has there. And then we spent a lot of time together and got to know some more of her extended family. And then it was on that trip that I was like, okay, this is the one that I want to marry. But she's probably not ready yet, so I think I need to wait a little bit. But I know that this summer, it'd be a while until we saw each other again. So I remember taking some notes in my journal and kind of writing down the reasons and stuff like that. But then a year after that, then I proposed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you glad that he didn't do it at the 3-month mark?
Yeah, he knew me a lot better than I knew myself even then. Yeah, I am someone who needs time. Like I adjust to change a lot more slowly than Mark does. Mark is pretty, he knows what he wants and then goes after it, whereas I'm like, I think I want this, but I need some time. So that time, even though like at that time I probably was already thinking like I can see myself like being married to Mark, I just needed that extra time to be sure or work on a relationship more, and to just adjust to dating life and also, yeah, like being married, like it's a big change too. So for me, it's nice to take things slowly.
Yeah, and again, we had been friends for quite a while before we started dating as well. So we already knew each other. I hadn't met her 3 months, and then I'm like, yeah, 3 months, she's the one. We knew each other quite well already.
Totally. You had a couple of years of same community, same climbing club.
That's right.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thanks for sharing that. Now, I know, talking about the big change of marriage, like so much of marriage is about expectations. Like we grow up with a certain understanding, whether it's what we observe in our own parents or in the communities around us and what we're told about marriage. We kind of develop our own idea of how it should look, how it will be, and we have all these expectations like, okay, this is what marriage will be. And sometimes those expectations are incompatible or just different. So for yourselves, what were some of those like kind of major expectations that you brought into the marriage and maybe didn't turn out the way that you thought it would?
For me, I would say that I had a lot of, and probably still now, a lot of unsaid expectations that I don't even know that I have until they're not met.
Right, yeah.
So that can be a little bit tough because it's only after the fact where I'm like, oh wait, he didn't meet my expectation.
Right.
And instead of talking to Mark about it earlier on in our marriage, I would often withdraw or get upset or angry or frustrated that he wasn't meeting those needs, but clearly that wasn't fair because I'm expecting him to be a mind reader when he's not.
Right.
For example, being a new parent, that's brought us into a new role. We have an 11-month-old son, Aramis. I can remember there was a week where it was a really long week. Mark had been busy with work and some other commitments, and so I had longer hours with Aramis. I'm staying at home with Aramis right now. I'm on mat leave. And then I remember him asking to go for a run on the Saturday, and in that moment, I said yes, but in my heart, I was just like, oh, like thinking all these negative things. Oh, he should have known that I need a break. He should have offered me some time to go away on my own, or he should have been doing all this. But he didn't know that I was tired. He didn't know that I needed a break. Yes, but I didn't know that I needed a break until he asked to go away. And I'm like, what? You're leaving me again with Aramis?
That's so selfish of you.
Right?
Like, come on, Mark.
But I didn't give him a chance to know how I was feeling. I didn't give him that chance to serve in that way, so that was unfair of me to do that.
Yeah. That's good for me to know too. I'll never ask him to run on a Saturday ever. Sundays only. That's awesome. Yeah. How about you, Mark? Expectations.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been a theme for us, expectations. I mean, something that maybe that we, being in a lot of leadership and stuff, I think I've always been a big fan of laying out expectations beforehand, and so maybe even sometimes too much. Sometimes, you just kind of roll with it. But I guess for me, it's sort of the opposite, where like my expectations were for Leisal to share her expectations for me, and just be open about it, and to let me know when she needs help.
Yeah.
And I think there's a middle ground that we've kind of struck. I mean, sometimes you can see when people are struggling, and you don't necessarily have to wait until they actually say asking for help. But yeah, allowing or encouraging Leisal to be open with me and share the expectations that she has.
Yeah.
And for me to do that as well.
So basically, like expectations around communication, where
Yeah.
like you just kind of expected that he should know when you need these things, so it maybe doesn't need to be talked about. You should just kind of assume it. And then for you, it was kind of like expecting that she'd be communicating everything that she needs, and even though she might not, you're like, I don't know. I just assumed that if she needed it, she'd let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, hey, how much of a relationship is all about communication,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and a lot of times it sounds like little things, but little things that occur often become bigger things in marriage.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good point. Yeah. And so you have to be really open, I guess, about those little things. Yeah. And then whether they seem nitpicky or not, I don't know. Like, do you kind of have to walk that line a bit where you're like, oh, is this just me being nitpicky about these little things, or is this like an important thing so it doesn't become big?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really worked for us is I call them like debriefing, and that's something that has made a big impact in our marriage. And again, sometimes Leisal gets annoyed by it, but I think that for us it's worked really well. Where we will debrief a lot of situations that we get into, whether good or bad, and just seeing how we can improve in the future. Like if we had ended up having a fight about something, whether it's expectations or another thing that came up, when we're both like level-headed and we've had a little bit of time to cool down and maybe think about it a little bit on our own, then we'll debrief the situation and just ask each other, like, how did this really make you feel? Sometimes quite often there's an underlying issue at hand, right? It's like, someone may not actually care whether or not you did the dishes, but it's like, I want you to want to do the dishes or something, like the classic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's like often
So
a lot of things underneath that are going on. And so we kind of ask those questions being like, what do you think it is that like really bothered you about the situation? And then what is it that I can do in the future to like avoid this or help you or support you? And that's been really helpful. And also sometimes we even debrief certain different events that we go to, just like it's allowed us to try and continue to serve each other and just be the best partner that we can. And it makes an avenue to be able to share some of those things. Like, for example, if we go to an event together, or if we're hosting somebody at our house, like at the end, we'll be like, how did you feel about how that event went? Like, how did you feel about how I presented myself and our family and such like that? And like, did I respect you and those sort of things? So it just makes an opportunity for us to talk about those things. Like, I'll ask, like, was I talking too much this time? Because I know sometimes I get really excited about certain things. Yes. If somebody asks me about rock climbing board games or fermentation, then
fermentation, referring to the food that you make.
Yes, that's right.
Kombucha.
Kimchi.
Yeah,
sourdough bread.
Yeah, sauerkraut.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
There we go. Just to clarify for all of our listeners, fermentation parties are super legit. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that picture of teamwork where it's not just kind of like, oh, I do my own thing, you do your own thing, and we hosted people, whatever, it's fine, move on. But you guys are like, no. Like, are we on a good level? Like, are we supporting each other? Did I bless you and honor you in this situation? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I know Mark says I get annoyed by it, sometimes I do, but I have seen the value of it over the years and how important it is to be able to reflect.
Yeah.
That is such an important part of marriage, I feel, as well, and being able to be open. Talking about things before things get out of hand or, so.
Not letting too many things sweep under the rug.
Yeah.
You're like, let's deal with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and obviously that's the give and take. Beautiful thing of marriage is you're like, you want to talk about things a lot. You're a little more happy to kind of let things be as they are, and you kind of meet each other in the middle, like you said, find that middle ground where sometimes people like Mark and myself want to talk about things too much, and you're like, simmer down. So no, that's wonderful. What would you guys say has been one of the biggest challenges of the married life that you've experienced, like that's unique to marriage?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before about expectations, I think being like a big theme for us, and that's something that we continue to come back to. But busyness tends to creep in. We're pretty involved in some ministry roles and stuff like that, and constant communication about our expectations and how much time we should have together, between like how much time we should have as a family and what we're serving and such. So just, I guess for me, like I'll go to a social event and then we're there and I'm having a great time, and being an extrovert, like I love it and it's very fun and uplifting for me, and then we get back and I'm like, okay, like what's next? And it's like Sunday afternoon, I'm like, Leisal, do you want to play a board game with me? And she's like, yeah, I just need to like chill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just being different. Although Leisal loves hanging out with people, sometimes she just needs time on her own, which is totally understandable. So I think the amount of things that we do which doesn't seem very fresh right now because there's only so much we can do with COVID. But I know before, when we were actually able to get together with people, that was something that would come up.
Yeah, I would say more like, in the earlier stages of our marriage, kind of figuring out our capacity level, and like that Mark can just handle a lot more in his schedule and doing things, whereas I am just not like that. Like I can do a lot, but not as much Mark can. I mean, he's known in his family as the Energizer Bunny, so he can just go, right? Which I love that about him. But for me, I need rest. And so I know at the beginning, I would always try to keep up with him, but that would often leave me feeling exhausted and like just unhappy, because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do all these things, but I don't feel recharged because I need rest. So that took us a bit to figure out, and understanding that we have different levels for what we can handle, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
So just accepting each other as is for that way has been really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's so good. Just kind of an aligning of, like you said, your capacities and even your interests, and not just being like, oh yeah, I love this. Of course they're going to love it too. Let's go do this all. Or, I need rest. Of course he's going to need rest too. Oh, he doesn't want to rest. Okay. It's like, where do we go from here? Yeah, just literally doing life scheduling, I guess those kinds of things in a marriage can become a point of tension, a point of, challenge. Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that. And then kind of on the flip side, what's been one of the most uplifting, helpful parts of marriage that you guys have just been, really grateful for?
For me, I feel like I've really learned I'm still in the process of learning, like how important communication is, because as you probably figured out from our conversation so far, Mark is really good and big on communication, where I'm not as much of a communicator. I'm more of a think in my head, or let's just let things slide, a conflict avoider, and but that doesn't turn out well. So for me, just how important it is, because it really determines kind of how an argument will go, how we love each other, how we support each other. Those things are based on that, and through this process, I feel like I've grown a lot emotionally and spiritually, because we've had a lot of hard conversations, and those hard conversations, forces me to grow when I don't approach conversations in a kind way or respectful or with humility. The conversation is not going to go well. Right. And when I have my defense kind of in my head already going as Mark is trying to tell me how he feels, that also doesn't work. So just learning how to be a better listener, and really opening up that space for Mark to be heard and valued as well is important. And so that has helped us navigate some of our challenges in communicating. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for Mark being an example of how Jesus calls us to love, and for being super patient with me as I kind of learned how to communicate in a more loving and respectful way when I'm upset or angry, or just bringing things up right away.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in a sense, maybe early on you were a bit, I don't know, frustrated by or confused by how different your styles were, and you're like, oh, why does this guy have to be like this? But now it's kind of come to the point where you're like, oh my goodness, this has actually really helped me grow. Like, this has really refined me, that he's not the exact same, like, conflict avoid, think about things inside your own head, like, don't really, like, he's kind of brought you out of that in a sense, and it's been one of your biggest points of gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well
I'm
done.
a lot nicer than I was 5 years ago to Mark.
Wow.
I would
That's awesome.
say. So.
Yeah. And how about for you, Mark? Like, in that same vein, you're just such a communicative person. To be married to someone who's not as much, how has that become something that you've learned to be like, oh my goodness, this is good for challenging me and making me a bit less, I don't know if less proactive or less driven maybe in some of these areas to just kind of like meet people where they're at?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is I've gotten to know Leisal, and I think there's like some marriage books out there and stuff about being like a student of like your spouse. And there's times where like I see how I've really gotten to know Leisal, where sometimes not being the best communicator because it takes her time to make decisions or to understand her feelings. There's times where I feel like I have, from experience, I know how she'll feel after a certain thing, and so it's like I could say this and she'd probably say yes, but then later it wouldn't work out. Or even how, like, I don't know, just, do you want a little bit of this food I'm making kind of thing, right? It's like, no, I'm good, but like really she does.
So you give her some anyways?
Yeah, I think just like over
win.
time, what's just like studying Leisal and being able to learn, or not studying, but being a student of her, like I've heard it said before, to just really get to know her and her desires and what things I can do so that she can thrive, and learning those things and being able to implement those.
Yeah.
I think has really helped with that, because maybe she may not communicate. Instead of waiting for her to communicate something, sometimes I can, like, just by knowing her, I can know what her desire or her true thing in this situation is.
Yeah, in a sense, bypass another conversation about like, hey, let's talk more about this. You're like, no, I just know what to do this time, and I'll save Leisal another, conversation about this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that was the thing I was talking about in terms of like, you don't always have to just wait for someone to ask for help when you know that they need it. So.
Yeah. So would you say that's been one of the biggest kind of blessings or points of gratitude for yourself in marriage, or are there other things you'd say?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of fun together. I mean, that's been awesome.
I can vouch for that at the gym.
Yeah, like we have a lot of similar hobbies. Like Leisal likes to play like hardcore board games, which is really cool. And we love being able to do that together, as well as like she's a really strong climber, so we can climb like the same grades together. And that's really good. And I think moving from Ontario, coming from there originally, moving here together, I think we've been really blessed with just how our family's been able to come together. Like we moved here with just our car and our climbing equipment and a couple
all the essentials,
some Tupperware and some camping chairs kind of thing, and now and we didn't really have career focused jobs at the time. Leisal wasn't sure what she wanted to do really, and we've come so far now. We managed to buy a condo, and I'm about to get my professional engineering license, working at a company for 5 years now. Leisal's been a teacher went to UBC, got her teacher license, been working as a teacher for a while. We have our first kid. So I think that we've we feel really fortunate that we've been very blessed in a lot of those things. Like we feel thankful that we didn't have to struggle through financial situations that can add a lot of things to your marriage.
Yeah.
Lots of support from our family and friends and different things through that time. So yeah, I'm just happy doing every day and spending lots of time together.
Yeah. And that's so important to do it in community. Like, even though you moved provinces, you moved away from so much of your family, still seeing that, being married in a community, having support, friends and family has just made it that much more rich, that much more kind of facilitating where you are at today. That's really awesome. Yeah, great. Now, a bit of a different direction with this question. A lot of young people today are advocating for kind of lower level of commitment in relationships, maybe more open relationships, and not really tying yourself down to one person. You two have been tied down to each other for a number of years now, and even, dating, engaged, married now. What would you say in your experience of that and just like committing to one person? Has that been something that's been really beneficial for you? Or would you just say like, yeah, it's the way we've done it, but there's actually a lot of benefit to multiple partners as well, and not just like, tying yourself into one?
When I first hear that question, I'm just like, having multiple partners, that sounds exhausting to me. That's my initial thought.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Right?
Yeah.
Because already our marriage is it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a blessing. It's awesome. But it requires a lot of intentional conversation, time, and effort. So for me, I really don't see how like someone could pour in that amount of effort into each partner they would have. And also like for our marriage, it's a lot of it is founded on trust, being able to be open and vulnerable with each other. And for me, like it's hard to be completely trusting and open and vulnerable because that opens myself up for hurt or disappointment. So doing it for one person already, I can't imagine doing that for multiple types of multiple partners. And being able to trust Mark and have that openness, I find it very fulfilling in a way, because I'm able to share some of my deepest hurts or my dreams, and he's there to support me in those. So, yeah, I don't know how I would. I think that would be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're up for the challenge, maybe, sure, but not really worth it. And
to have a deep relationship.
Yeah, to have that.
Yeah. And to be known deeply by someone, to know them deeply is like, it's been pretty valuable for yourself.
Yeah. Actually, on my wedding day, my Aunt Margaret shared this like cheesy but yet I think really great advice. Just what she said was that like marriage is not 50-50, but marriage is like 100%, 100%. Just like, you're not like going halfway expecting the other person to meet you there, but like you're going all the way 100% through giving your all to this person, and not in the way that you're expecting it. Right? Like you hope that and you can talk about your partner doing the 100% as well, but it's like for me, I just try and be an example to show that I'm giving my 100% and not waiting for Leisal to meet me in the middle. And I think that has, I've learned a lot about that, and in my relationship with God, and just how God has, God has done that for us. And I think marriage is about what you can give rather than what you can get. And so having the idea about it being 100%, like for one person, then it's about what you can give. And I don't think that God has made us to be, although it's contrary to our sinful desire, I think God desires us to love others, and we know so much about that. And when you are loving others and giving what you have for other people, you can feel so fulfilled and you can have so much joy through that. I think that if you were in relationships with multiple people, then it would be hard to imagine the reason you're in those relationships is because you want to give all these things to many people. I think you'd be more likely to be in a relationship with other people because of what you can get from them. And
Dude, that's so good.
God has
So good.
God has shown us how to give, and marriage is a great example of that. But I also think that, in the end, you won't really be happier. I look at there's different examples out there, but you look at a lot of celebrities and different things and people who feel like they've gotten it all, they've worked it up and they've got to the end, and a lot of the times they end up, turning to drugs and sex and different things like that. And there's some people who maybe they don't go that way, but they end up going to humanitarianism.
Humanitarianism. Humanitarian works. Peace Corps, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so just even for people who may not be have a religious or a Christian background, but they still have that you see that although we have a sinful desire to go for these things, God has instilled in us, and the more connected to God, I think the more in touch we can get with that we're meant to be serving others. And so you see these people who start going toward humanitarian roles, like celebrities and stuff, because they realize that life is more just about what I can get, and it's about what I can give. And so I think ultimately you feel more fulfilled being able to serve others rather than be in all these relationships where you can just try and get what you want. I don't think you're gonna end up happier. Aside from the fact that the Bible's pretty clear about how God has designed us and how He wants us to live our life. But I think that you're not really gonna end up in a better place.
Wow. Man, what the two of you both just shared, that was gold. I love that. So good. Thank you so much for sharing that. As we bring things to a close, I'm just curious for all of our young adults community and people, even outside of our community watching this, mostly singles. There's a lot of young adult singles out there, and in the Christian, circles, a lot who desire marriage. It's just a part of what we long for in relationships. And so, what would be your advice to young singles looking for marriage? What's your advice to them in this season of waiting, in this season of desiring it? Now that you've experienced it, you're in it, what would you say to them in their place?
I would say that marriage is fun. Although it has its challenges, being able to do things together with your spouse is pretty special. I don't take it for granted that I get to eat. Right now for COVID, we get to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner pretty much every day together. And I don't take that for granted. All the little things. It's been a blessing being able to do life together.
Again, a bit on the thing that I talked about in terms of giving. I think, when you're in dating relationships and meeting people and things, I think you gotta check your intentions when you're in those situations. I think if you're starting off relationships looking at people being like, oh, what can this person give me? What can they do? Are they gonna be a good mom and that sort of thing? I mean, you do want to look for those things, obviously, and you want to be in a relationship with somebody that you can that you can get to know and you can grow, and hopefully you have the same hobbies and things like that. But I think just being really aware of how you're feeling, are you saying oh, can I serve this person? Is this somebody that I can bring closer to Jesus in the end, and can they do the same for me? Or is it these are the things that you want out of it because, I don't know, for whatever reason, you want to be able to go out with your friends on the weekend still, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and then also like something that I've been learning is just your ability to serve too, like is reduced. If you want, like Leisal said, it takes a lot of continuous effort to keep up your relationship.
Yeah.
And so that you're making sure you're not neglecting that. Like you might not have as many roles as you did before.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things about busyness. I love to be involved and serve in different ministries in the church, but there's things that I just can't do. I don't have the time for because like now we have a baby and we have each other, and we got to put those things first too, as well as making sure that we're digging into God individually as well.
Yeah, so good. And I just love how, again, those things complement each other so well. It's like the funness, the goodness of marriage, like this is a good thing, and then also kind of the inherent limitations of marriage, where it's like, hey, you got to say no to these things to say yes to a healthy marriage and parenting. And so as a result, you're giving up some stuff, but don't worry, like it still is fun. Like marriage is good. It's not like it's this burden. It's like, oh shoot, I missed out again. It's like, no. The relationship is valuable. It's kind of that primary investment. Yeah.
You may not be able to climb the double digits in Squamish, but
Yeah. No more 513s. Yeah. No, thank you guys so much for sharing that and just for coming out and giving your time. Like, so good to hear about your experience and how God has shaped you and taught you so much in this process already, and how our young adults community and others can be reframing, kind of like, oh yeah, I do desire marriage. What do I think about that? So just really, really grateful for that. Thank you guys.
Sweet, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was an honor to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, it goes both ways. Thanks.